Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Wild Turkey Rare Breed Barrel Proof. I already reviewed the Wild Turkey Long Branch during Bourbon Month, March 2019, and I did an uncorking of the Wild Turkey Revival, which I'll be doing a more formal review of very soon. This bottle was opened in the last week of December 2016, so it's been open for over 2 years, and it's about 2/3 down. I visited the distillery the week following Christmas, the end of 2016, along with 5 other distilleries. Had an absolutely fantastic time. If you're ever in Kentucky, you're visiting distilleries, Wild Turkey is a must visit. In fact, while I was there, after we did a tour and I was in the sort of shop where they have the gift shops and stuff like that, and none other than master distiller Jimmy Russell was there, and I was able to get this barrel head here, and he signed it for me, which was quite awesome. It's prominently been displayed in the back of my set here, and you can hang it on the wall. It has a little hook on there for hanging on the wall. I've got it in a metal stand so it can stand freely on top of a table, whatever. So this has been open for a while, and as you can see, I got this down about 2/3 of the way, and I've been opening a lot of bottles, doing a review almost every day this month, and I've got some other whiskey bottles open. And one of the concerns I have is in reviewing so many whiskeys and having so many open bottles, the concern is, will it become overly oxidized really quick? Is this bourbon, having this much air, been open for this long, has it become overly oxidized? Well, that's what we want to see. But before I get into this bourbon, here are my notes. Wild Turkey Rare Breed Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Rare Breed was first released in 1991. Originally, the batches were once denoted by a batch number, but more recently by a unique proof. Wild Turkey uses a single mash bill for all their bourbons, which is 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. Rare Breed is a blend of 6, 8, and 12-year-old bourbons. Wild Turkey's barrel entry proof, the proof the distillate enters the barrel for aging, is relatively low at 107 to 115, up from 105 at one time, resulting in a low bottling proof by comparison to competitors' barrel proof products. It is bottled at 112.8 proof or 56.4% alcohol by volume. Alrighty, so I had Kyle from Bourbon Blind on my show recently, and one of these questions I asked him was this very issue of how fast do they become overly oxidized? The Scotch test dummies have an ongoing test going on. They bought some cans of spray that are supposed to be used for wine to keep it from becoming oxidized, and they've been experimenting with the whiskeys, and thus far in the experiment, and it's an ongoing experiment, thus far it seems to be better to not gas your whiskeys, particularly if they're peated. But maybe a year from now they'll go back to the same whiskeys and see how they're doing. So I have not been gassing my whiskeys because of that very thing. I'm letting them be as is, and there's some others who have very large collections of bottles that are open, and they also don't gas them. So one of the things I want to do with this is not just review this bourbon, but let's see if it's gone bad. Let's see, has it become oxidized? Because I did have a bottle of Buffalo Trace, which was opened probably a few months before this one was, and that one was sort of heading there, but it was also a larger bottle, and it was also a lot further down, probably even further down than this one. So I want to go back to this and find out, is it still good to go? All right, let's get into this. So visually, it looks just like a bourbon. It has a sort of a copper color to it, sort of a medium amber on the nose. So you may ask, okay, so what does a bourbon or any other whiskey seem like What are the traits if they become overly oxidized? A red wine that becomes oxidized will smell sort of like a rusty nail. It gives that sort of character to it. In both red wines and white wines, the fruit just goes bad. It becomes sort of flat. I don't have a ton of experience with overly oxidized whiskeys, but they tend to become stale, kind of like a stale bread. They don't have a freshness to them. They don't seem lively anymore. And this one seems to be just fine. So what am I getting on it? In fact, it's actually opened up quite nice. It's smelling really, really good. I'm getting a lot of vanilla pudding with vanilla wafers and bananas. I mean, it's like the first thing I get. Tons of vanilla. It's very creamy. It's very buttery. Kind of goes along with the vanilla banana pudding characteristics. Get some cinnamon. Apples with cinnamon. Light caramels. All right, on the palate. This bourbon's really, really sweet. I don't remember it being this sweet, but it's silky, it has a slight nip, it's sort of mouth coating, creamy feel. It has its silkiness, sort of glides across the palate. Sometimes things that become oxidized can develop a nuttiness that they didn't have before, but nuttiness is a common characteristic in some bourbons, even when they're not overly oxidized. White wines if they're overly oxidized, can develop a nuttiness. Wines that are intentionally oxidized, they're an oxidized style, such as sherries, are Madeira, or Masala, those sort of fortified wines, they can have a nuttiness to it, but that's part of the style of the wine. So I would say minusculely, I mean just a tinge. It just have a tinge of staleness to it, but I have to really look for it. If I wasn't focused on it, if I wasn't concentrating and thinking about it really hard, I wouldn't even notice it. So it tastes nice and sweet. It's got that vanilla banana pudding with vanilla wafers. It's got a little bit of spice. It's got apples. It has a nice creaminess to it. Texturally, it's really silky. It's probably just, a hint on the back end that there's a slight staleness to it, but it is so minor, it's almost not worth noticing. And if I poured this for someone and didn't happen to point that out, they probably wouldn't even notice this. So, being that it's almost at the bottom there, I think I'm gonna have to kill this bottle, but not tonight. I'll have one or two tonight when I'm recording this, but this is gonna need to go pretty soon. What do you do with that much bourbon? Real simple. You make cornbread. You make a bourbon cornbread. If you've never made a bourbon cornbread, or never seen a bourbon cornbread or tasted a bourbon cornbread, stay tuned to this channel because I'm gonna do a bourbon cornbread later on before the end of Bourbon Month. And that's an excellent way to finish off a bourbon. Is to put it in some cornbread. All right, or any other baked good, but anyway. All right, that's it for this review. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social networking channels. And you may notice I didn't give it a score. I didn't give it a score because of how long it's been open. It wouldn't be a fair score. As it is now, I'd give it an 87. I'm sure if I had it further up, it was hadn't been open so long, it would be higher. It would be higher. But otherwise, I'm not giving a score don't base that or use that as your means of deciding whether or not to buy it, because this bottle goes for around $40 to $50. And then this, I'm talking about for the $750. This is a half size. So the full size bottle, $750, goes between $40 and $50. That's an absolute killer bottle. That is a steal, and there's so many bourbons. And I've been talking about this in my last few bourbon reviews. The prices have been going up. I just did a search on this one in my local area. Not only is it, in fact, this one was like 38 and some change in my area, and it's available. This is still holding its value, which makes me super, super, super happy. All right, that's it for this review. Until next time, cheers. Hey, if you like my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.